This is first class. You must be in the wrong seats. A woman in a $5,000 suit glares at a young black mother, gently buckling her toddler into the plush leather seat. The mother looks up, exhausted, but firm. We're in the right seats. The argument that follows stops the entire boarding process, forcing the captain to come out. But when the mother discreetly shows the pilot her credentials, his blood runs cold. He freezes because the woman isn't just a mother, and the disruptive passenger has no idea the catastrophic mistake she just made. The atmosphere in Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport's Terminal A was a familiar brand of chaos, a symphony of rolling suitcases, garbled announcements, and the sharp scent of burnt coffee. For Maya Richardson, it was just noise. She stood in the priority boarding line for transcontinental flight 447 to Los Angeles, her body angled slightly, a living shield for the small boy whose hand was wrapped tightly around her fingers. To the untrained eye, she was just another tired mother. Her jeans were practical, her sneakers comfortable, and her jacket was a nondescript navy blue. A slightly too large backpack was slung over one shoulder, and she wrestled a collapsible stroller with the other. The boy, Elijah, was barely 3, his face half hidden by a blue baseball cap. He was quiet, clutching a worn, stuffed bear. Maya's exhaustion was real, but it was a cultivated surface-level fatigue. Beneath it, every nerve was live. She wasn't a mom on vacation. She was Special Agent Maya Richardson of the United States Secret Service. And Elijah was not her son. He was Elijah Montgomery, the grandson of the vice president, and she was the lead agent on his soft transport back to the embassy in Los Angeles. After a credible threat in Washington, a motorcade was a target, and Air Force Two was too high profile. The safest way to move the asset was in plain sight, hidden behind the cultural invisibility of a tired black woman and her child. She could feel the eyes on her. It was a constant in her job. But today it was different. It wasn't the subtle assessing glance of counter-surveillance. It was the sharp, judgmental stare of the woman standing behind her in the first-class line. The woman was her polar opposite. She was tall, with severely pulled-back blonde hair, a cream-colored pants suit that likely cost more than Maya's monthly rent, and a steel-gray briefcase that looked more like a prop than a piece of luggage. Her name, Maya had already clocked from her luggage tag, was Victoria Patterson. Victoria hadn't tried to hide her disdain. She'd huffed when Elijah stumbled slightly. She'd muttered to the man next to her, "Why they let children in the priority line is beyond me." Maya kept her face placid, her focus entirely on the boarding agent's podium. Don't engage, don't escalate, be the wallpaper. Her mission was simple. Get the asset from point A to point B without anyone knowing he was the asset. Now boarding first class, rows 1 through 4, the gate agent announced. Maya folded the stroller, picked up a sleepy Elijah, and moved forward. Victoria Patterson was right behind her, radiating an aura of impatience. As Maya fumbled for a moment with the boarding pass and her backpack, the woman sighed, a sound like air escaping a punctured tire. "Do you need some help, dear?" Victoria asked, her voice dripping with condescension. "Maybe the economy line would be faster for you." Maya turned, her eyes flat and calm. "We're fine, thank you." She handed her passes to the agent. "Ms. Richardson, Mr. Richardson, seats 2A and 2B. Welcome aboard." Maya walked down the jet bridge, her senses on high alert. 2 agents were already on the plane. One in the cockpit as a guest of the airline, the other in the rear of the economy cabin. Her job was the bubble, the close protection. As she stepped onto the aircraft, the scent of recycled air and leather cleaner hit her. She smiled politely at the flight attendant, Jennifer, who greeted her at the door. "Welcome. Oh, and who is this little gentleman?" Jennifer smiled at Elijah. "This is Elijah. He's a bit tired," Maya said, her voice the perfect pitch of maternal apology. She moved down the aisle to the second row. 2A, the window. 2B, the seat next to it, where the airline had pre-installed the FAA-approved car seat, just as her advanced team had arranged. She settled Elijah in, expertly clicking the 5-point harness, her movements economical and precise. Elijah, sensing the enclosed space, began to whimper. "Shh, buddy," Maya murmured, pulling a small tablet and headphones from her backpack. "Look, we get to watch cartoons." It was then that Victoria Patterson arrived at the row. She stopped dead, staring at Maya and Elijah. "No," Victoria said, her voice sharp. "Absolutely not." The flight attendant, Jennifer, who had been helping another passenger, hurried over. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" Victoria Patterson pointed a manicured finger at Maya. "There is. She's in my row. I am in 2C. Jennifer glanced at her passenger manifest. "That's correct, ma'am. You have the aisle seat 2C. Ms. Richardson and her son are in 2A and 2B. "This won't do," Victoria snapped. She wasn't just annoyed, she was offended. "I am a platinum executive flyer. I paid nearly $12,000 for this ticket. I am not going to sit next to a crying child." She spat the word. "For a 9-hour flight, it's unacceptable." Maya looked up from the tablet, her expression neutral. This was the moment, the pivot point. She could feel her training locking into place. De-escalate, deflect, reassure. "Ma'am, he's just getting settled," Maya said, her voice soft and reasonable. "I have headphones and his favorite movies. He's an excellent flyer. He'll likely sleep the whole way." Victoria's eyes narrowed, sweeping over Maya's jeans and sneakers. The look of disdain was palpable. It wasn't just about the child. "You must be mistaken," Victoria said, her voice low and venomous. "This is first class. You're clearly in the wrong seats. Let me see your boarding pass." "I don't need to show you my pass," Maya said, her voice losing its softness, replaced by a quiet, firm edge. "I showed it to the gate agent, and I showed it to the flight attendant. We are in our assigned seats." "Jennifer," Victoria said, turning her full attention to the flight attendant. "You need to handle this. I am on my way to Los Angeles for a high-level negotiation. I require quiet. I cannot be disturbed. Move her." "Move her," Jennifer repeated, blinking. "Ma'am, where would you like me to move her? The first-class cabin is completely full." "Then move her to the back." Victoria's voice rose, turning heads. Passengers in rows 1 and 3 were peering over their seats. "Move her to economy where she belongs. I'm sure she can't afford this seat anyway. It's probably a welfare ticket or a stolen upgrade. I will not have my flight ruined." The implication hung thick and toxic in the air. Where she belongs. Maya felt a hot flash of anger, a deeply personal one, but she smothered it instantly. This wasn't about her. It was about the mission. But Victoria was now creating exactly what Maya was trying to avoid, a scene. She was drawing attention. "Ma'am," Jennifer said, her own voice tightening, "I can assure you Miss Richardson is a ticketed first-class passenger. She has every right to be in this seat." "Right? What about my rights?" Victoria was practically shouting now. "I am a paying customer. She is a problem. Look at him. He's already squirming." Elijah, sensing the tension, had indeed started to fuss, his lower lip trembling. "You're upsetting him," Maya said, her voice dangerously quiet. "I'm upsetting him?" Victoria laughed, a harsh barking sound. "He's upsetting me. I demand to speak to your superior. Get the purser or the pilot. I will have this plane turned around if I have to. I am not sitting here." She threw her steel-gray briefcase onto the floor in the galley, crossing her arms. "I will stand right here until you fix this." The boarding process had ground to a halt. The line of passengers snaked back up the jet bridge. Maya could feel the eyes of her backup agent, the one in economy, burning into her back. This was escalating from an annoyance to a security risk. Every minute they sat on the ground, they were a stationary target. Robert, the flight's purser, arrived. He was a tall man with a calm demeanor, but his eyes were already tired. "Ma'am, I understand there's an issue with your seating. Victoria launched into her tirade again, this time even louder, playing to the crowd. This woman, she pointed, is creating a disturbance. She's brought a loud child into first class and is refusing to move. She's clearly not fit to be in this cabin, and she's upsetting the other passengers. I am Victoria Patterson, lead counsel for the Henderson-Blake merger. My time is valuable, and this airline is failing in its duty of care. I demand you move her and the child to coach immediately. A man in 3A, who had been watching silently, leaned over. For goodness sake, lady, just sit down. She's not bothering anyone. You are. Victoria wheeled on him. You stay out of this. This doesn't concern you. It does when you're delaying my flight, he retorted. Robert the purser held up a hand. Ma'am, he said to Victoria, I must ask you to lower your voice. You are delaying our departure. This is your assigned seat. The cabin is full. There is nowhere to move, Miss Richardson. Please take your seat. No, Victoria said, her face set like concrete. I will not. You are discriminating against me. You are prioritizing her comfort over mine. I pay for a premium service, and I expect it. I'm not sitting next to someone who smuggled her kid in on points. The prejudice was so naked, so brazen, it silenced the cabin. Jennifer, the flight attendant, looked horrified. Maya knew she had to act. Her cover was secondary to the asset security. This delay was the real danger. Ma'am, Maya said, standing up. She was several inches shorter than Victoria, but her presence seemed to take up all the air in the aisle. I am not going to ask you again. You are causing a scene. You are frightening my son, and you are delaying this flight. Sit down. Or what? Victoria sneered. What are you going to do about it? I'm not going to do anything, Maya said, her eyes like polished stones. But the captain will. Robert, she said, turning to the purser. This passenger is disruptive and non-compliant. She is a flight risk. You need to call the captain. How dare you? Shrieked Victoria. You're calling me a risk. You're the one who can't control your child. You're the one who doesn't belong. I'll have your job. I'll have all your jobs. Robert, Maya said again, her voice cutting through Victoria's hysteria. Call the cockpit now. Robert nodded, his face grim. He picked up the intercom phone. Captain Matthews, I need you at the forward galley. We have a non-compliant passenger delaying departure. A collective sigh went through the cabin. This was serious. Victoria, for the first time, seemed to realize she might have gone too far, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. She crossed her arms, tapping her foot, a smug look on her face, as if she was certain the captain would see things her way. A moment later, the cockpit door opened, and Captain Daniel Matthews emerged. He was a man in his late 50s with a shock of silver hair and an authoritative bearing that came from 30 years of flying, 10 of them in the Air Force. He did not look happy. Captain Matthews's presence immediately changed the temperature in the cabin. His blue eyes swept the scene, taking in the flustered purser, the irate Victoria Patterson, and finally the calm, steady figure of Maya Richardson, who was now murmuring softly to Elijah, pointing at the lights on the ceiling. What is the problem here? Matthew's voice was a low baritone that commanded attention. It was the voice of a man who didn't tolerate nonsense. Victoria immediately switched tactics, morphing from a harpy into a victim. Oh, Captain, thank goodness. Your staff is being incredibly unreasonable. I am Victoria Patterson, she said, extending a hand which he did not take. I am a platinum flyer on my way to a vital business meeting. This passenger, she gestured to Maya, has brought a very agitated child into first class. He's been screaming, well, practically screaming, and she's refusing to move. I simply asked your purser to find a more appropriate seat for her in the back, where she won't disturb the rest of us. Captain Matthews looked at Maya. Ma'am, is your child ill? Maya shook her head. No, Captain, he's just 3. He was startled by this woman's yelling. She met his gaze directly. We are in our assigned ticketed seats. This woman, Ms. Patterson, has refused to take her own seat and has been verbally abusive, demanding we be moved to economy based on her preferences. Matthews looked at Victoria. His face was unreadable. Ma'am, is this your assigned seat? Yes, it is, Victoria said. But that's not the point. The point is your airline's failure to maintain a professional environment. I am being subjected to— The point, Captain Matthews interrupted, his voice sharp, is that this is a full flight. The point is that you are preventing us from closing the door. The point is that you are in violation of federal air regulations by refusing to comply with a flight crew's instructions. Victoria's face turned a mottled red. Violation? I am the victim here. I am the one being inconvenienced. Are you really going to prioritize her over a multi-million-mile flyer? I am prioritizing the safety and security of this flight, Matthews said. I am not moving a mother and her child who are seated correctly. You have two choices. You can take your seat, or you can be removed from the aircraft. The Atlanta police are 2 minutes away. This was the ultimate humiliation. Victoria's eyes darted around. The entire cabin was staring. The man in 3A had his phone out, though he was pretending to read an email. This is unbelievable, she seethed. This is reverse discrimination. Ma'am, I'm not going to argue with you, the captain said. Your decision now. It was at this moment that Maya knew she had to intervene. The situation had been contained, but the damage was done. Victoria Patterson was now a volatile element. She had drawn the attention of every single person in the cabin to Maya and Elijah. She had photographed them with her eyes. She would remember them. This compromised the mission. A simple deplaning wasn't enough. The threat had to be neutralized and the flight had to get in the air. She unbuckled her own seatbelt and stood. Captain Matthews, she said, her voice low and clear, may I have a word with you and the purser in the galley privately? Victoria let out a laugh. Oh, now she wants to be private. What's the matter? Going to cry? Going to offer him some sob story? Maya ignored her completely. She looked only at the captain. Sir, it's a matter of federal security. The words hung in the air. Federal security. Captain Matthews' eyes snapped to hers. The entire mood shifted in a nanosecond. The annoyance on his face was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. He was no longer a civilian pilot. He was Colonel Matthews, USAF, retired. Galley now, he commanded. He nodded to Robert. Watch the aisle. Maya stepped into the small galley, her back to the cabin. Captain Matthews and Robert the purser followed, pulling the curtain shut. The space was suddenly small, illuminated by the harsh blue and white utility lights. What is this about? Matthews asked, his voice a low rumble. I am Special Agent Maya Richardson, Maya said, her voice stripped of all maternal softness. It was flat, professional, and cold. She reached inside her navy jacket, not for a wallet, but for a laminated department-issued credential case. She didn't flash a badge. That was for movies. She opened the black leather folio. On one side was her United States Secret Service badge. On the other was her photo ID, but she didn't point to either of those. She pointed to a third card tucked into a sleeve below the badge. It was a simple laminated pass bordered in a specific pale blue. In the center was a gold eagle sigil and below it 2 words, Project Silver Shield. The effect on Captain Matthews was immediate and profound. He didn't just look at the pass. He recognized it. His face, already grim, went completely white. He didn't just pause. He froze. His eyes locked onto the pass and his breath hitched. The blood drained from his face. Robert the purser looked confused, staring at the captain, then at Maya, then back. Matthews' training, his past, his entire military career came crashing into the present. He wasn't just any pilot. He had spent 4 years on the 89th Airlift Wing. He had flown Air Force 2. He had been briefed on continuity of government protocols. He knew the sigils. He knew the code names. Project Silver Shield was the active transport designation for the vice president's immediate family, specifically the grandchildren. His freeze was a silent cognitive explosion. He wasn't looking at a disruptive passenger. He was looking at a federal agent. And the toddler in seat 2B was not Mr. Richardson. He was the vice president's grandson, an asset. In that single terrible second, Captain Matthews understood the catastrophic gravity of what Victoria Patterson had just done. She hadn't just been rude. She hadn't just been racist. She had, in her screaming entitled tantrum, illuminated a classified high-risk security operation with a giant flashing neon sign for every passenger on the plane to see. "My God," Matthews whispered. He looked past Maya through the small gap in the curtain at the small boy now quietly watching cartoons. "Is the asset? Is he secure?" "He is for now, Captain," Maya said, her voice like ice. "But your passenger in 2C just put a spotlight on my entire operation. I am on a soft transport because of a credible threat in D.C. My cover is tired, Mom. A cover that woman just tried to rip to shreds because she didn't like my face. She has delayed takeoff by—" Maya checked her watch. 14 minutes, leaving us exposed on the tarmac. She has drawn the attention of every passenger in this cabin to me and my principal. Matthews swallowed, his throat dry. He looked at Robert. "Robert, go to the cockpit. Tell First Officer Chen we are on a Code 7 security hold. No one on or off the plane. No communication. Seal the cockpit door. Do it now." "But Captain," Robert started. "That is a direct order," Matthews snapped. Robert, wide-eyed, nodded and disappeared. The captain turned back to Maya, his military bearing fully returned. "Agent Richardson, what are your orders? What do you require?" "I require this plane in the air. 10 minutes ago," Maya said, "which means I need you to handle Ms. Patterson. She can't be deplaned. That will cause a greater delay and she will file a report making this public. She can't be moved. She'll make a scene. She has to sit in 2C and she has to be silent. She cannot speak. She cannot use her phone. She cannot interact with me or my principal in any way. You need to put the fear of God into her, Captain. I don't care how." "Consider it done," Matthews said, his voice grim. "And Captain," Maya added, "when we land at LAX, I need a sterile arrival. I need a private car on the tarmac. I cannot take my principal through the terminal." "I'll radio ahead," Matthews said. "We'll declare a minor diplomatic irregularity. It will be handled. My apologies, Agent." I didn't know." "Your job is to fly the plane, Captain," Maya said, snapping her credential case shut. "My job is to make sure he lands safely. Let's go do our jobs." Captain Matthews pushed back the curtain. The 10 FT from the galley to row 2 felt like a mile. The air in the cabin was thick with silent, anxious curiosity. Victoria Patterson was still standing, arms crossed, a smirk of vindication on her face. She believed the captain had taken her side. "Well," Victoria said, her voice triumphant, "have you found a more suitable seat for her?" Captain Matthews walked past her and stood in the space directly in front of seat 2C. He was a large man, and his presence was intimidating. He did not speak. He simply stared at her. His face was no longer that of a customer service representative. It was the face of a man who had commanded troops in hostile territory. The smirk on Victoria's face faltered. "What, Ms. Patterson," Matthews began, his voice so low and controlled that the passengers in row 1 had to strain to hear. "I am going to tell you what is going to happen now. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is an order." Victoria's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "In exactly 5 seconds, you are going to sit down in your assigned seat. You are going to buckle your seatbelt. You are going to put away your phone, your laptop, and your briefcase. You are not going to speak to the flight crew except in an emergency. You are not going to speak to, look at, or in any way acknowledge the passenger in 2A or 2B for the duration of this 9-hour flight." How dare you?" Victoria stammered. her confidence shattering. "You can't!" "You will not," Matthews continued, his voice dropping another level. "Use your phone to text, email, or make any calls. If I or my crew see you so much as glance at the woman you have been harassing, I will have you physically restrained by my flight crew. This is assault. I'll sue this airline. I'll sue you." "And finally," the captain said, ignoring her completely, "when we land in Los Angeles, you will remain in your seat until every other passenger has deplaned. You will then be met at the gate by officers from the LAX Airport Police, who will detain you for questioning regarding your interference in an active international security operation." Victoria's blood ran cold. "Security operation? What? What are you talking about? She's nobody." "You, Miss Patterson, are a fool," the captain said, his voice laced with a contempt that was colder than any anger. "You are an arrogant, entitled fool, and your behavior today has been noted. You have not inconvenienced a passenger. You have interfered with an agent of the United States government while in the commission of her duties. That carries a prison sentence of up to 10 years. Victoria was no longer red. She was the color of ash. An agent. Her. She looked at Maya, who was calmly sipping a bottle of water, her gaze fixed on Elijah's tablet screen. 5 seconds, Miss Patterson. Sit down." Victoria's entire world had just collapsed. The arrogance, the pride, the self-importance, it all evaporated, replaced by a raw, primal fear. She looked at the captain's granite-hard eyes. She looked at Maya, who suddenly seemed infinitely more dangerous than a simple mother. She fumbled, almost falling into her seat. She grabbed the seat belt, her hands shaking so violently she could barely click it. "Good," the captain said. He turned to the rest of the cabin. "My apologies for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. We will be closing the main cabin door in 1 minute. Please be seated." He gave Maya a single curt nod and returned to the cockpit. The door sealed with a heavy final thud. Victoria Patterson sat frozen. She stared straight ahead at the bulkhead wall. She was a lawyer. She knew what interference with a federal agent meant. She knew what international security operation implied. She had just threatened, harassed, and attempted to have a federal agent thrown off a plane. She didn't just feel humiliated, she felt terrified. The plane pushed back from the gate and taxied to the runway. The engine spooled up with a deep roar and Flight 447 lifted off into the sky, banking over the continent. For the next 9 hours, the first-class cabin was a tomb. Victoria Patterson didn't move. She did not ask for a drink. She did not accept a meal. When Jennifer, the flight attendant, came by to offer her the menu, Victoria just shook her head, her eyes wide, staring at the seat back in front of her. She was a statue of terror. Her mind was racing, replaying every word. 10 years, LAX police, interference. Her entire carefully constructed life, the partnership at the firm, the Henderson-Blake merger, the penthouse, the respect she demanded, it was all teetering on the edge of a cliff. All because she couldn't stand the sight of a black woman in first class. Maya, for her part, played her role to perfection. She was the model mother. She and Elijah watched Finding Nemo. She quietly read him a story from a picture book. She managed to get him to eat some of the fruit plate, and eventually she rocked him to sleep. For the last 5 hours of the flight, Elijah slept peacefully in his car seat, and Maya rested, her eyes closed, but her senses alert. She never once looked at the woman sitting 2 FT away from her, but the cabin was not as oblivious as it seemed. In seat 3A, the man who had defended Maya, Marcus Bennett, had watched the entire silent drama unfold. He hadn't heard the private conversations, but he had seen Victoria's initial prejudiced tirade. He had seen the captain come out. He had seen the color drain from Victoria's face, and he had seen her sit in terrified, rigid silence for the entire flight. Marcus Bennett was not just another passenger. He was Marcus Bennett, the CEO of Henderson Blake Industries. He was the man Victoria Patterson was flying to Los Angeles to meet. He was the client whose $40 million merger she was supposed to be handling. He had seen his lead counsel, the woman his firm was trusting with their most sensitive international deal, have a complete prejudiced public meltdown. He had watched her attempt to abuse the flight crew and another passenger. He had watched her display a stunning lack of discretion, judgment, and basic human decency. He opened his laptop. He connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi. He didn't need to wait for the meeting. He began to type an email to his board of directors. Subject, urgent. Change of counsel, Henderson Blake merger team. I am on flight 447. And by a deeply unfortunate coincidence, so is Victoria Patterson of Sterling and Walsh Law. I have just witnessed Ms. Patterson engage in a level of unprofessional and frankly bigoted conduct that I find disqualifying. She delayed our flight by nearly 30 minutes, publicly harassing and attempting to have a black passenger and her young son removed from first class. He continued to type, his fingers flying across the keys, detailing every word he had heard. He described her entitlement, her threats to the crew, and her shocking lack of emotional control. This is not a person I can trust with our negotiations. Her judgment is fundamentally compromised. Her behavior was a liability. By the time we land, I want Sterling and Walsh Law off the account. Find me a replacement. We are severing ties. Effective immediately. He hit send just as the plane began its descent into LAX. The plane touched down at LAX with a gentle bump, but for Victoria Patterson it felt like a drop into an abyss. Every second of the long taxi to the gate was a fresh agony of suspense. She stared at the back of Maya's seat, her mind a frantic looping reel of the captain's words. LAX police, 10 years, interference. Was he bluffing? He had to be. It was an intimidation tactic. You don't get arrested for being rude. It was absurd. But then she'd remember the look in his eyes, the cold, hard certainty. She'd remember the way Maya hadn't flinched, hadn't reacted at all, as if she were completely insulated from the normal rules of the world. Victoria's skin felt cold and clammy. The plane glided to its final stop. The engines began their low hydraulic whine as they spooled down. Just as the ding of the seatbelt sign went off and passengers began to unbuckle, Captain Matthews's voice came over the PA, sharp and authoritative. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Los Angeles. We have arrived at our gate. However, we ask that all passengers remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. I repeat, all passengers must remain seated. The local authorities will be boarding the aircraft momentarily. Please remain calm and keep the aisles clear. A ripple of nervous whispers shot through the cabin. Authorities, what's going on? Is it a security check? Instinctively, all eyes in row 1, row 3, row 4 went to Victoria. She had been the center of the drama. She was the disruption. This had to be about her. She shrank in her seat, feeling the heat of their collective judgmental stares. She wanted to be invisible, to melt through the floor. The jet bridge connected with a dull thump. The main cabin door opened, but it wasn't the usual ground crew. It was two men in impeccably tailored dark gray suits. They were tall, fit, and their faces were severe and expressionless. Their eyes were like polished glass, sweeping the cabin with a practiced impersonal efficiency that made the hairs on Victoria's arms stand up. They spoke briefly in low tones to Robert the purser, who pointed a single trembling finger toward row 2. The men moved down the aisle with a fluid, silent speed that was utterly unlike the tired shuffle of disembarking passengers. They stopped directly at Maya's seat. The cabin was dead silent, the only sound, the hum of the auxiliary power. "Agent Richardson," the lead man said. Maya was already on her feet, having gently woken Elijah and bundled him onto her hip. He was rubbing his eyes, looking confused. "Yes," Maya said, her voice clear and professional. "All secure. Asset is quiet." "This way, ma'am," the man said. "We have your transport on the tarmac. The ambassador is waiting to receive you." The two men turned, forming a perfect human wedge. They did not ask other passengers to move. Their mere presence commanded the aisle. The entire first-class cabin watched, jaws slack, as Maya Richardson, the woman in the practical jeans, the one Victoria had called a welfare ticket, was personally escorted off the plane before anyone else. She disappeared down the jet bridge with her son and two men who radiated an aura of lethal diplomatic power. Only after the door was secured behind them did Robert the purser, looking visibly shaken, step forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, you may now deplane. Thank you for flying with us. Please have your passports ready." Victoria Patterson watched her go, her mind short-circuiting. Agent, asset, ambassador. The captain hadn't been lying. He hadn't been bluffing. She hadn't just insulted a mother. She had harassed a federal agent on duty, protecting someone. The term asset echoed in her legal mind, and it made her feel sick. Her fear of a simple arrest was suddenly, chillingly, replaced by the dawning, sickening realization of who she had just attacked. The potential consequences were beyond anything her legal mind could comprehend. The other passengers began to file out, casting curious, disdainful looks at Victoria as they passed. She remained frozen, a pariah in her own $12,000 seat, unable to move. She was still fumbling to gather her briefcase, her hands shaking so badly she couldn't work the clasp, when a figure blocked her path. It was the man from 3A. "Marcus Bennett." He stood there, his face calm, looking down at her with a quiet, disappointed expression. "Miss Patterson," he said. Victoria's head snapped up. Her heart leaped with a desperate, misplaced hope. A friendly face, a witness maybe. "Oh, Mr. Bennett." Her voice was a desperate, shaky squeak. She tried to manufacture a smile to regain a shred of her professional composure. What a surprise. I didn't see you there. This flight has been just dreadful. You saw it, didn't you? How that woman and the captain, it was all a terrible misunderstanding." Bennett didn't move. He just watched her babble, his expression hardening. "A misunderstanding, Victoria. Is that what you're calling it?" "Yes. I mean, I was stressed. The Henderson-Blake merger, you know how it is. I didn't mean for it to escalate. She shouldn't have had that child in first class. It's not—" "Stop," Bennett said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through her excuses like a scalpel. "Just stop talking. You're only making it worse." Victoria's mouth snapped shut. "I'm Marcus Bennett," he said, as if reintroducing himself. "As in the Henderson-Blake and the Henderson-Blake merger? I'm the CEO, the man you were flying to Los Angeles to meet, the client whose $40 million deal you were supposed to be handling." The blood didn't just drain from Victoria's face. It felt as though it evaporated. Her stomach twisted into a knot of pure ice. She gripped the armrest, her knuckles white. "No," she whispered. You can't be." "I am," he said flatly. "And I sat in seat 3A. I saw the entire thing, from the moment you huffed in the boarding line to the moment you called her a welfare ticket. I heard you demand she be moved to where she belongs. And then I watched you, the prospective lead counsel for my company's most sensitive international deal, get dressed down by a pilot like a petulant child. You didn't just escalate, Victoria. You were the escalation." "Marcus, Mr. Bennett, please," she begged, standing up, grabbing at his sleeve. "It was a mistake, a horrible, horrible mistake. It won't happen again. It was the pressure. It's not who I am." He pulled his arm away, not with anger, but with a cold, final disgust. "A mistake? No, Victoria. A mistake is a typo in a brief. What I saw was your character, and it's rotten," he continued, his voice low and brutal. "You are a prejudiced, unstable, and colossally stupid woman." "Stupid," she gasped, the insult stinging more than the accusation of prejudice. "Stupid," he repeated, his voice cold. To show that much open bigotry is, setting aside the moral bankruptcy, a catastrophic business liability. We are merging with a company whose entire board is famously diverse. You think I can put you in a room with them? You, a woman who cracks under the pressure of sitting next to a child. You have no discretion. You have no emotional control. You are a walking, talking lawsuit. And you just proved you are a liability I cannot afford. I can fix this, she pleaded, tears now welling in her eyes, carving tracks through her expensive makeup. The meeting at 10 I'll explain. I'll apologize to everyone. The meeting at 10 a.m. is canceled, Bennett said, as is your firm's involvement. I emailed my board and your managing partner, Richard Coleman, from 30,000 FT Sterling and Walsh Law is terminated from the Henderson Blake account, effective immediately. This was it. The final blow. The $40 million deal. The one that was supposed to make her a senior partner. Gone. No. Richard Coleman. You can't do that. I already did, Marcus said. I told him exactly what I saw. I told him his firm's lead counsel was a public relations disaster. I told him your behavior, your personal behavior, just cost his firm their single largest client of the quarter. I imagine that's a conversation you'll be having with him. If he hasn't already had your security pass deactivated. He looked at her, a crumpled, sobbing mess in her expensive suit. There was no pity in his eyes, only judgment. Have the life you deserve, Victoria. He turned and walked off the plane, his footsteps echoing in the now empty cabin. Victoria was left alone, her world completely and utterly destroyed. A flight attendant stood at the galley, her arms crossed, waiting for her to leave. The look on her face wasn't anger. It was simple, unadulterated contempt. The jet bridge felt a mile long. Victoria Patterson stumbled out into the bright, cavernous expanse of LAX's Terminal 4. A ghost in a $5,000 suit. The normal, cheerful chaos of the arrivals hall, the tearful reunions, the weary travelers scanning for their drivers, was a deafening, distorted roar. Every laugh sounded like a jeer. Every glance felt like an accusation. She was a pariah, and she was sure in her escalating paranoia that everyone knew, that the man checking passports was staring at her, that the woman at the duty-free kiosk was whispering. She felt hollow, scooped out. The $40 million Henderson Blake deal was gone. Her biggest client, the one who was supposed to be her ticket to a senior partnership, had personally fired her. He had called her rotten. He had called her stupid, and he had alerted her managing partner. She walked, dazed, following the arrival signs on autopilot, her steel gray briefcase, once a symbol of her power, now a lean, useless weight in her hand. She made it through the security checkpoints, her face pale and tear-streaked, barely registering on the scanner. She was a non-entity, a ghost. Finally, she found a relatively quiet corner by the baggage claim, sinking onto a hard metal bench. Her hands were still trembling. The reality was too vast to process. She had to call Richard Coleman. She had to explain. She could spin this. It was an isolated incident, a moment of... What? What could she possibly say? With a sense of profound dread, she pulled her phone from her purse. She had kept it in airplane mode, terrified of what she'd find. Now there was no choice. She took a shuddering breath and tapped the icon. Her phone did not just explode, it died. It was a digital shriek. The device vibrated so violently in her hand that she almost dropped it. A nonstop agonizing buzz as 100 notifications, emails, texts, and missed calls, all bottlenecked by the 9-hour flight, slammed into it at once. The lock screen was a waterfall of pure panic. 52 missed calls. Richard Coleman, managing partner. 28 missed calls. Amanda Chen, PR director, Sterling and Walsh Law. 14 missed calls. Thomas Grant, colleague. Text, 12. Richard Coleman, text, 9. Amanda Chen, voicemail, 18. Her blood turned to ice. 52 missed calls from her boss. Not one, not 5. He hadn't just been angry, he had been in a state of escalating frantic rage. And the PR director, why was Amanda Chen calling her? Before she could even process the call log, the emails flooded in. The top one, highlighted in red, was from Richard Coleman. Subject, immediate termination. Her finger, slick with sweat, fumbled to open it. It was not a request for a discussion. It was a death sentence. Victoria, this email serves as official notice of the immediate termination of your employment with Sterling and Walsh Law for cause. Your flagrantly unprofessional, racist, and abusive behavior on Transcontinental Flight 447, which has been brought to my attention by both our now former client Marcus Bennett of Henderson Blake and as of 20 minutes ago by viral video, constitutes a catastrophic breach of our firm's code of conduct, our ethics policy, and basic human decency. You have brought the firm into public disrepute. You have single-handedly cost this firm its largest client of the fiscal year. You have exposed us to immeasurable legal and reputational liability. Your access to all firm systems, emails, and premises has been revoked, effective immediately. Do not attempt to contact any Sterling and Walsh clients. A member of our HR team will be in touch to coordinate the collection of your personal effects from your office. Richard M. Coleman, Managing Partner, Sterling and Walsh Law. Terminated. The word was so cold, so absolute. Revoked. For cause. She wouldn't even get severance. Her mind spun, grasping for a defense, for an excuse. But the email was a steel door slamming shut in her face. Then a new text message buzzed at the top of the screen. It was from Thomas Grant, a rival associate at the firm. Holy hell, Victoria, I'm hearing... Just what did you do? Richard Coleman is on a warpath. He just came out of his office and told HR to nuke your entire existence. PR is in full-blown meltdown. Check this, it's everywhere. Below it was a link, a TikTok link. She clicked it, her stomach clenched. The video opened, grainy, shaky, filmed from an angle slightly behind her. She saw the back of her own blonde head, and then she heard it. She heard her own voice, shrill, arrogant, and laced with a venom she didn't even recognize. Move her to economy where she belongs. I'm sure she can't afford this seat anyway. Probably a welfare ticket or a stolen upgrade. The camera panned slightly, catching the tired, impossibly calm face of Maya Richardson, and then back to Victoria as she stood up, jabbing her finger. I am Victoria Patterson, lead counsel for the Henderson-Blake merger. I will not have my flight ruined. The video was 3 minutes long. It ended with the captain arriving, his face like thunder. The caption was simple. This is Victoria Patterson, a lawyer for Sterling and Walsh Law. Watch her attack a black mom and her 3-year-old son because she didn't want to sit near them in first class. Make her famous. Make her famous. She looked at the view count. It wasn't 1.5 million. In the hour since it was posted, it had been shared, stitched, and reposted. It was now at 4.2 million views. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely scroll. The comments were a tidal wave of fury, thousands upon thousands of them. A digital mob forming in real time. Sterling and Walsh, is this your employee? Disgusting. Someone find her LinkedIn. Oh, wait. Found it. Link. This is the lead counsel for the Henderson-Blake merger. Henderson-Blake, you need to see this. She said where she belongs. The racism is just wow. Fired in 3, 2, 1. I'm a client at Sterling and Walsh Law, not anymore. I'm calling my account manager. The poor mother. She handled that with so much grace. This Karen, I have no words. It was over. It was all over. Marcus Bennett hadn't even needed to make the call. The internet had passed its judgment. She was not just fired, she was infamous. She was airline Karen. She was the first-class racist. She was a meme, a pariah, a cautionary tale. Victoria Patterson's body finally gave out. The phone slipped from her numb fingers, clattering onto the tile floor. The steel gray briefcase, her last badge of honor, slid from her lap and hit the ground, its latches popping open, spilling a few unimportant papers. She didn't bother to pick them up. She sank forward, her head in her hands, and sat there on a public bench in the middle of LAX's arrivals hall, a multi-million-dollar career in ruins. A life's worth of ambition turned to ash, all of it destroyed, not by a legal rival, not by a market crash, but by her own deep, ugly, and now very public prejudice. Miles away, in a black armored Suburban, gliding silently through the pre-dawn Los Angeles streets, Maya Richardson finished her brief. Transport complete. Asset is secure at the embassy. ETA 0540. The principal is with the ambassador. No further incidents. Elijah, blissfully unaware, was drinking a juice box, his nose pressed against the window, pointing at a passing fire truck. "Look, big truck!" Maya smiled, a genuine, tired smile. "It is a big truck, buddy. Welcome to Los Angeles." She put her phone away, the incident on the plane, already just a few lines in her after-action report, filed under civilian disruption, resolved. For her, it was over. For Victoria, the hard karma of a lifetime of consequences had just begun. The story of Victoria Patterson is a hard lesson in a simple truth. The person you dismiss might be the one you should fear the most. She saw a mother and a child. She should have seen a protector and a principal. She saw weakness. She should have seen strength. Her prejudice didn't just cost her a seat. It cost her career, her reputation, and her entire future. Karma doesn't always wait. Sometimes it's sitting in the next row, and it hits before the plane even lands. What did you think of Victoria's downfall? Was it justified? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. If you love this story and want more real-life drama where karma hits hard, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button. Click share to send this to a friend, and most importantly, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell. You won't want to miss what we have coming next.